Okay, I'll make a motion to open our workshop meeting.
I'll second.
How do you vote?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Okay, what I was hoping to do in the workshop session here tonight is if Steve was here to have him explain his take on the application, and so that everyone understood that when I first looked at it, it took me quite a while to kind of comprehend what was going on. So I figured maybe I'm not the only one in that situation. But since Steve isn't here, maybe we can start by kind of discussing this as a group and seeing what questions people have. First of all, Susan and the applicant had requested a pre-application conference, and Susan and I attended a meeting with them. This was in mid-December, and I have some minutes from that meeting. But basically what they did is they just kind of explained what they were looking for. What they're really looking to gain from the pre-application conference is to know if there was any more information the board needed and if it seemed reasonably complete. So what came out of that discussion was basically them explaining it to us. We took a look at some of the relevant code that applies, so they understood the code. And then what came out of it was, I think the only additional piece of information that they were going to submit was an acoustic study for their exterior mechanical equipment. Susan, did you have anything you want to add?
No, that's what happened.
Okay. So anyway, the applicant, to summarize it here, since we don't have Steve to explain it, what they're looking to do is St. Louis Church is looking to put in some new mechanical equipment and in the yard. So they're replacing their entire HVAC system. I'm sure the applicant can explain it as to why they're doing what they're doing. But the key factors for us is it involves work in the front and side yard of the building. So they're putting a large air conditioner unit, I believe, in the side yard, and which is currently behind a bunch of trees. And then what they need to do is they need to get the ductwork and equipment from that air conditioning unit back to the building. And again, the applicant can explain all of this, but what they did is they ran some pipes, and to screen all of this, they're proposing putting a short wall to hide all of that, and then they're putting landscaping in front of it.
I think it's more than that. I don't think that's 100% accurate. If I understand it correctly, the current system has a condenser unit on the outside on the side of the building, and then there's pipes that run that cold liquid into the building, and then inside the building there are ductwork and fans. What they are proposing is that in addition to a new condenser unit on the outside side of the building, that they are going to move the air handling ductwork to the outside of the building and put that on the front of the building. So instead of just replacing the condenser unit, they're also moving the air handling equipment to the outside. So it's more than just some pipes. I think it's some fan and ductwork and additional equipment, not just a few pipes.
Okay. That was something that I never quite understood, which is exactly why the system is larger than it is. Again, the applicant can explain it and Steve can explain it. We just kind of listened. They had their engineer work on it. They've worked very hard on the engineering of this. I understand the old system was a custom system, and this is a proposal that they came up with. And again, we can listen to what the applicant wants to say. Yeah. But the important thing is there's new mechanical equipment going in. It's taking up more space than before. It's going in the front yard and side yard, which is not the ideal location. Normally, we don't put the mechanical equipment in the front yard. But they're trying to do what they can to screen it with landscaping and a wall. So that's the important thing to consider. And we could all listen to the applicant and ask them questions about the particulars if that's relevant. So first of all, did anyone else want to chime in with any questions before we discuss this anymore?
I think everybody should look at the acoustic study that Steve sent around.
Right.
It's pretty significant. You know, the study talks about an average of a 3 dB increase, but I think when you look at the octave bands, which are the different octaves of sound, you'll see that in certain octaves, there is a greater than 3 dB increase, almost, I think, in some instances, a 4 dB and 5 dB increase, which is pretty significant. So that's something that I think we want to speak to the applicant about and understand what they plan to do to remediate that, because that's, I think, something significant, especially when it's on the front facing of a building.
I didn't get the acoustic study and I don't see it on the
I can
website.
I didn't receive that.
I didn't receive it either.
It's in our, I got it from Steve. Give me a second.
Yeah, Steve emailed it around to everybody and I asked Steve to make sure it was posted on the website, but I guess that didn't happen.
Well, I
Oh,
got it.
hang on just a second. I might have received it. Just a minute.
Just send it to you, Mindy.
Thank you.
I do have it. I'm sorry.
Okay, so John, you're interested in some of the acoustics information. We can ask the applicants about that. And we could also ask them for clarification on everything they're installing. So there's a couple other factors with this, other than the mechanical equipment and the acoustics. There's also the appearance of this. And we can listen to what the applicants have to say about this, but they submitted a couple images that weren't necessarily labeled clearly. That's in the meeting packet. And one of them that shows all the new landscaping and the wall behind it is what it's expected to look like after construction and after the landscaping has grown. There is another one that shows the wall without the landscaping. Apparently that was requested by the HPB, so they understood what the architectural structures would look like. And then they also show an image of the existing conditions now without the wall and without the modified landscaping. I just wanted to explain that to everybody if there's any confusion.
Justin, is the HPB going to review the exterior look of the, I guess, wall or fence? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yes, and my understanding is they went to the HPB for information only at a meeting, and they briefly presented their project, asked them what the HPB wanted to see for their application and so on. And so their current application reflects whatever discussion they had with the HPB.
Okay. So it looks like they have a matching brick wall that they're going to put up. It's
Right.
to match to the same brick that's on the exterior of the front facing building. Yep.
Yep. Now, the other part of this application, just so everyone's on the same page, is because they're expanding impervious surface to put in the wall and the additional mechanical equipment, they've applied for a variance because they're well over the allotment for the zoning district. It's zoned residential, and churches are allowed in residential districts. And the applicant worked with Steve to take a look at how much impervious surface they have relative to some other properties in the village, notably other churches in the village. And that got wound into their application. So Steve worked on doing that analysis. Other churches have vastly more impervious surface. I tried to get a little more background on the property. And it sounds from Steve's research that basically the property is mostly the way it is now, is mostly the way it's been since about the 70s. So the parking lot arrangement and pavement, he thinks, has been that way since about the 1970s. He did not find a prior site plan And we tried looking for some variance records to see what had been approved, and he didn't find any. I don't know what's out there. I do know they did come in for a number of approvals in the past, but at this point, I don't have any information, and Steve didn't have any more information to share with us. Mindy, is that of any concern to you?
It's always a concern to me if I don't know what the historical permitting of the property is. But it sounds like most of the people on this board have, been around in the village periodically for the past 10 or 15 years. You probably have firsthand knowledge as to whether the exterior of the structure and the parking has changed. I'm hoping.
I don't think much has changed, to my
Right.
knowledge, at least in recent history. Joanne, you've been lived in the village a very long time. Have you? And you live pretty close to there. Have you noticed much?
No, there's been nothing from the front that has changed. I know that at one point they wanted to enlarge their parking lot into one of those houses that's on Rand, but I don't think they own that house anymore,
Right.
and it was denied.
Right.
So is this like the huge thing that's behind the rec center? Is that what they're proposing?
There's one right now behind bushes. But it's more than that, because that's only a condenser unit. And so what they're proposing is a condenser unit and then fans and ductwork, which is what's supposed to be hiding behind that new brick wall that they
Right.
proposed. So it's more than what's at the rec center.
I looked at everything and I couldn't tell how tall it was.
I'm not sure if they gave us side views. We could ask the applicant. They did give us a model of the condenser unit, so we could look that up.
And is there any reason why they can't use a permeable surface as opposed to an impervious one? Is it because it's right next to the building and drainage, or?
Could ask Steve. I think Steve just joined. Steve, do you know?
Looks like he's up there. He is.
Oh,
Steve, are you on? He appears unmuted, but I don't see him, so I don't know if he's actually connected.
The audio looks to be connecting. John, your part on the ductwork, I understood that diagram to suggest that it was going to be above ground. Is that your understanding as well?
yeah. Behind that, that's why they have to build that. That's why they want to build the brick wall.
That whole brick thing across the front
Yeah.
face. Yeah, right.
Yep. Because when I read the application, it sounds like a lot of that, the ductwork and like blower and fan system is currently inside the building, right? Which just like any one of our houses, right? And just like the rec center, right? Your condenser's on the outside, pumps the cold fluid on the inside, and then there's ductwork and fans that blow it around. They want to have that on the outside of the building now. I mean, you can see on page, where is it?
11.
I'm trying to get there. What page is that? Yeah, page 11 is a good example, right?
Yeah.
What does
On the
that
left-
look like?
On the left-hand side is the existing plan, which has the condenser in orange behind kind of, looks like some,
Mhm,
they're like just short arborvitaes that go straight up.
mhm.
And then now you'll see that they're putting in a 40-ton unit, and then it's the top of the T, and
Mhm.
then the front of the building, that's all of what I would say is the air handling equipment. It appears. That's what I got from reading it.
Mhm.
I've just heard from Steve. He's having some issues connecting. His computer's locking up. So he's hopefully going to try either calling in or getting another way in. So he is working on that right now so he can answer questions.
Okay.
Okay, so there's some general questions that I'm hearing from people about the nature of what they're doing and the extent of how much larger this equipment is than the last equipment. There's questions of acoustics. I'm presuming we can have some discussion about the landscaping. Is there any other questions that comes to people's minds that jumps out at them, either for clarification or things that make sense to address?
Well, I wondered about why if they couldn't do a permeable surface as opposed to an impervious one.
Okay, that's correct. You had that.
And the application didn't address any of the factors required under the area variance criteria.
I'm taking down a few notes. Okay, I was just jotting down a few notes. Thank you for being patient with me here. Okay, well, we have about 5 minutes until the meeting starts. If no one has any other major topics or questions they have for now with this application, we could talk about the meeting schedule. There is a request to change our meetings to the first Thursday of the month. And I know Joanne had some concerns about that, and I hadn't heard concerns from anybody else. So I think this could be a reasonable topic to bring up here and see what people think.
I have no issue.
I don't have any issue.
If it's a problem for Joanne, we might also consider the Wednesday, then that would still give Dorothea and staff, time over a weekday to prepare materials.
So
Could be first Wednesday, and then it would still precede the HPB, which is, kind of one of the major, most important reason, behind this, to streamline things for applicants.
Is HPV week 2 of the month?
3.
Great.
They're week 3. Village
And
board is week 2 and week 4.
Okay, so we're taking week 1.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine switching the day if there's a better day that works for
Yeah.
you, Joanne.
Any other day but the first Thursday. That's historic Pittsford, and I've been on that board for more than 25 years. I did run it by them and they said that there's other people on the board also that have conflicts other days of the week. So it wouldn't be an easy change for them. So I'm between a rock and a hard place, guys.
I
Well,
mean,
then how about Wednesday?
yeah.
Wednesday's awesome.
First Wednesday.
That would,
Personally, I would prefer a Monday or a Tuesday. I don't have a conflict on Wednesday, but I'd prefer it, but
well, it gives Dorothea time to get is that what I'm hearing?
Well, we went for Thursdays to have more consistency. We always know that there's a board meeting on Thursday. That didn't really pan out with HPB. Really getting the week straightened out. The village board will be on Thursdays. So honestly, it's your board, your decision. So if you guys want Wednesday, Tuesday, I would stay away from Mondays. Mondays are tough, coming off a weekend, trying to get everything together for a meeting, especially if you're missing documents and things like that. Gives us a day to try to catch it and get it all resolved. So hopefully it's not all last minute.
Up to you guys. Tuesday, Wednesday, doesn't matter to me.
Same here.
so I believe the HPB is doing them on Mondays. Is that correct?
Yes, unfortunately, I couldn't talk him out of it. I
Oh.
did try.
I'm for Wednesdays.
Wednesday's fine for me.
I'm indifferent, either one, like, whatever you guys want to do.
Yep, doesn't matter to me.
Justin, can you live with Wednesday?
I can attend.
Okay, well, that's good. Yeah.
All right, I finally got in, folks.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, going once. Just so I can get you posted. So are we good to go with Wednesdays? I'll take it.
Okay.
All right, we'll get you new calendar dates out. I think we already have it prepped, so I'll probably email it to you tomorrow and get everybody.
Well, so the other question is times of meetings. So we've been doing workshops at 6 and the meetings at 6:30. I was
Mhm.
curious as to what people's thoughts are on that.
I'm fine with 6:30.
No,
Yeah,
no earlier.
I like it early.
So from my point of view, it's hard for me to certainly no earlier. It's hard for me to get here by 6. Right now, I'm staring at food I can't eat. Because it's hard to get all that sorted out by 6 o'clock. I see Mindy nodding her head.
Me too.
You have that problem too, John?
The later, the better for me.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't matter to me, whatever time works for you guys.
Well, how about workshop at 6:30? Meeting at 7? Isn't that what the trustees do, Dorothea?
Trustees start their meeting at 6:30. They don't have a workshop before their meeting.
Oh, I thought, oh, okay.
No,
Can we make, is it possible then maybe we just do the workshop more of a as needed, not always have the workshop?
that might work for you.
Just so we're not, you know,
I mean, that's a real possibility where when we had in-person meetings, we usually found them pretty helpful because we could put the applications out there. Everyone could look at them, we go over it, get a list of questions from people. It's helpful for me to hear what topics are of interest to people regarding the application. So we know what to ask the applicant and how to steer the discussion. So that's one of the things I find helpful with the workshops is I'm listening to everyone else. And but can we do without them? Sure, we could do without them, particularly since we're not having as many applications anymore because many of them have gone to the trustees.
oh, you don't have to cancel it. I'm just saying, I think there's some meetings where we probably just don't need the half an hour.
Right. I also think that, you know, some of the questions we've asked, the applicant needs to answer. So why couldn't that take place? You know, those questions during the meeting when the applicant can hear what we're thinking, what we're asking.
What if we do a 6:30 meeting and a 6:30 workshop as needed?
Or
So
6 o'clock workshop as needed.
yeah, just do it as needed. So if there's a particularly cumbersome project that we really want to talk about in advance and have some things to kind of hash out. And then the other thing there is by not separating it from the meeting, it doesn't take away Dorothea's time for another schedule to set it all up and have it be publicly noticed. It's all kind of part of the same thing.
So
Okay.
Dave, you're saying that if we need a workshop, it would be at 6:30 and then the meeting would be at 7?
Oh, well, so that's an idea too, Joanne. I was thinking just have a 6:30 meeting, skip the workshop, and
Oh.
then decide if we need a workshop in advance more than a week before so that we can notice it and accelerate it. Though your comment, Joanne, is interesting as well, which is we could have a 6:30 meeting, and then if a workshop's needed, keep it 6:30, but start the main meeting at 7. And I'm fine with that as well. Sometimes on Wednesday, I come upon a like 8:45 type hard stop, but hopefully 2 hours is good for us, but sometimes it's not. And maybe just out of courtesy, we recognize that we don't want to go too late for all involved. Right, so having,
Then Dorothea doesn't have to sleep on the cot.
yeah,
I'm thinking 2.5 hours. The village board does 5 hours. You guys, you're lightweights.
we can do better.
No, 2.5 is awesome. It's whatever you guys want to post. I mean, you're getting your packet out. If you see you have an application that might say, you know what, we really want to workshop, someone can alert me and we can notice. For that, it's 3-day notice. It's not a matter of 10 days or anything like that. That's just a timing issue. We can put that up.
Oh, that's
You're
great.
That's just a workshop part.
Why
So
don't
we
we
can
just
make
go-
those adjustments.
Why don't we just go with 6:30 meetings then? And then as we see the packet come in, we realize, hey, maybe we should start a little earlier and just talk for a couple minutes.
If we're gonna do that, we just need to notice it and it needs to be on the website.
Should we accelerate it to an earlier time? If not, we just keep it at 6:30.
Right.
And there's really no harm in having a preliminary discussion, just like we're having now, for 15 to 20 minutes before we get started on applications anyway.
It may be disrespectful to the public, that's all. You know, if people want to log in for a meeting, they don't
Yep.
necessarily want to hear you talk about procedural stuff.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so 6:30 for meetings on Wednesday, the first week of the month. Is everybody good?
Yep.
I'm great. That's awesome. We'll get that posted. Thank you so much for your understanding and your cooperation.
Are we starting that next month on the 2nd?
Yes, we're kind of going to play with dates. Hopefully, so far you haven't had any applications come in, my understanding, right, Steve? No.
All right,
So-
so we just cancel it then.
Your first meeting might be very well canceled.
Okay.
That also
Or-
brings up the virtual component. It is continuing till February 15th. So I guess I would request from the board to let me know if you want to stay virtual or you want to go in person.
Virtual.
The boards have left that to the village board left that to the individual boards to decide.
I love virtual.
Yeah, definitely virtual for me.
Is that virtual? Okay, so February's would be virtual if anything popped up. So we'll let you know.
And just thinking about it, maybe we should get into the meeting, but just to wrap up this topic, is we don't have any applications. We're well past the application deadline, I believe, for February. So, but we have a backlog of minutes we need to get caught up on. So I think it can make sense. It's only a couple weeks from today to use that February meeting to get caught up on minutes.
Okay.
We'll have them ready.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll, with that, let's go ahead and open our regular meeting. Thank you for the background discussion, everybody. And I will make a motion to close our workshop session and open the regular meeting.
Again,
Okay, roll call vote. Member Loda,
Yes,
member Katura,
Yep.
member Marshall,
aye.
member Shannon,
Aye.
Chairman Bellistra.
Bye.
Motion passes. And I believe the applicant is here. I will move them up.
Yep, so let's start with the conflicts of interest disclosure. As I mentioned in our workshop, I just want to disclose that Susan Loda and I met with the building inspector met with the applicant in mid-December. At the applicant's request for a pre-application workshop. And the primary goal of that was for the applicant to explain their application and the materials they have so far. And the primary question was wondering if there is more information that needed to be submitted to be on our agenda tonight. So we had that discussion. We have some minutes from that discussion, and the minutes will be filed with Dorothea soon enough. But I just want to disclose that. Otherwise, I have no other conflict. I have no conflicts of interest to disclose. Does anyone else have any conflicts of interest to disclose?
I have none.
I do not.
Do not.
I think my house is sufficiently far from the applicant. I am kitty corner across the street a little bit. I'm across from the Yellow Rectory. So aside from the two houses at the front of Stonegate and the ones adjacent to, I'm probably the next closest. I don't know, frankly, if I would be able to hear 3 or 4 decibels sitting on my front porch on a quiet night when there is no traffic. And so it is hard for me to, with respect to the sound, and visually, it's right in my front yard, if you want to think of it that way. I'm fairly certain I can be objective and don't think of it as a conflict, but I do want to express it. If anybody else has of concern, I can certainly bow out on this one. There's certainly many of you and very adept people here.
Well, I think the question for you is whether you can fairly evaluate the application based on the facts. And if we were to ignore people that we happen to know or may have been friends with and recuse ourselves on that, it's a small village, we'd be recusing ourselves an awful lot. So various people have, so it's purely a personal question for you. That's your decision to make.
I think I'm fine. I think I'm fine. Actually, I know I'm fine. I just want to make sure everybody knows.
Mindy, do you have anything to add about that?
No, you covered it very well. Thank you, Justin.
Okay.
Great. Thanks.
Okay. So that said, all the discussion so far, by the way, has been about the one applicant on tonight's meeting, which is St. Louis Church. So there are no other applicants in case anyone on the line is confused as to what property and applications we are talking about. So with that, what I would like to do, we have the applicant, we have a representative from the church, and we have a representative from their engineers here. And I would like to start with having them present their application. And just for the applicant's point of view, there's a couple questions from some board members already. So some areas you want to, you can address in your presentation is talk about your landscaping, talk about the size of your equipment relative to existing, and your purpose of your design. So there are some questions about the noise. So please go and explain your noise and explain your study. And some other topics that came up was we're going to be having you present all your information now. We're technically listening as 2 separate boards, a zoning board and a planning board that happen to have the same members. So we can let you present all your information, but our analysis and criteria are quite different for the different boards. So we're going to review them. So we'll have you present everything, and then we'll deliberate on the application separately on the application and the requirements important to each application. So with that said, I'll go ahead and encourage the applicant to go ahead and take the microphone here for a while. And by all means, present a general description of what you're doing and kind of explain the rationale for your design and some of the areas that I mentioned. I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself.
Okay, I guess I'm Casey Bernhard. I'm with Labella Associates. I'm the mechanical engineer working with the church on this project. And I'm wondering, would it be helpful? Should I share my screen so I can point at drawings as we're going here? It might make things a little bit easier, I guess. That
You're able to share.
okay. All right, is everybody seeing that okay? Oh, yeah, there we go. All right. Now I assume everyone's able to see this?
Yep.
All right. So just to give the brief overview for why this is needed, the church air handling unit is, geez, I'm blanking now all of a sudden on how old it is, but it's extremely old.
1957, I'll pipe in.
57, is that when it was?
The church was built in 1957, 56, 57, and it has the original equipment in it. And one thing I'll point out as Casey begins, you might assume that there's a basement under the entire church. However, there is not. There is only basement under the area that Casey is showing, which is the altar area at that end. And then at the very eastern end, there's a small basement just under the foyer on the eastern end. So that is part of what is limiting our flexibility is as to where the equipment has to be. So it's under the altar area, which is the west facade. There you go. And the main part of the church, the whole center section, the nave, has no basement. So that's one of our leading constraints, is getting into that basement under the altar area.
Where's the current air handling equipment?
Yeah, so the current air handling unit equipment is in the front, it's in that front basement area. So it's right here where I'm pointing with my cursor. We have a plan view of that, or a partial plan view. All right, well, this is that front area underneath. That's a partial plan view. So this is that air handling unit. And then, I mean, this is from an outdoor perspective, there is an outdoor unit right now. It's a condensing unit with fans and compressors that's located right here. It is very well hidden right now behind the landscaping that's there. And then this would be the new unit with an outside air hood on the front of it. And then the ductwork would be coming off the side of the unit and dropping down into an areaway that would be hidden by a knee wall. So it would all be hidden. The ductwork will all be hidden behind this wall. So and just to step back and give that, so because it's so old, it's in drastic need of replacement. Really doing it this way so what we're doing is taking the air handling unit that is currently inside the church. We are packaging it together with the condensing unit. So if you can picture that equipment combined into one piece of equipment, and then being located in that same location as that current outdoor condensing unit. So that the reasons to want to do that are first, cost savings, energy efficiency, And honestly, it's the space available in that basement mechanical room is very limited to be able to do this efficiently with modern equipment. So those are the reasons why the church needs to get this done now, and why we've proceeded with this, or why we're looking at this option as the primary option for replacement. So that's the high level overview. This is, I can show another plan to give a little bit more perspective here on this, the elevation
Can I
view.
interrupt for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead, Sally.
Well, I wanted to just explain that the area that we're going into the building is an existing opening. So Casey, if you can show us the existing opening, the penetration that is there, which is currently now back on your site plan.
Oh, okay.
So the area
Right.
that's
So
now an opening where outside air comes in is where the new ductwork, where we're proposing to take the new ductwork into the basement so that we don't have to cut a penetration through foundation walls, which are, of course, very thick. So if you look at where his cursor is right now, that grading area is as a penetration in the ground, which goes to an underground air intake, which is how the furnace brings in outside air. And through Casey's research, he's found a way to get the outside ductwork through that penetration that's existing. And so if you move over to the proposed drawing, it's marked with green right there. And the ductwork would be stacked so that it could go into that. It's a very deep, full height of the basement penetration, so that the ductwork would go through it in a stacked fashion.
Is the current air handling equipment going to be removed?
Yes.
Is there room to put in air handling equipment in the basement today? So you mentioned there's a cost savings to put it on the exterior, but I'm just curious, using modern day equipment, could you put air handling equipment in the basement?
Well, Casey just mentioned that in his overview that with current modern equipment, the basement does not have the capacity to hold that level of equipment inside it. It's a confined area.
Well, maybe not the equipment that's spec'd out right now, but I guess, is there equipment on the market that could fit in the basement that would work for this project? Is that possible, Casey?
So I think that if we were to try to, the unit that they have there now has a gas furnace as part of this unit. So if we were to try to replicate what they have now, it would be 100% custom unit, and it would add significant cost to the project. So
I guess I'm not suggesting that you replicate the current unit because you're talking about also gas heating. I guess what I'm asking is it possible to have air handling equipment in the basement and still provide cooling and heating on the exterior with modern day equipment, not replicating the same?
Yeah, I think the only way to do it would be to try to replicate what's there now. What we're doing is putting a hot water boiler down in that basement. So we're taking up, it's amazing. We thought we would be cleaning up. I mean, you can tell that this is the demolition drawing. So it's showing this is the air handler, and then the ductwork. There's a return fan over on this side of the room. It's fairly crowded. But our new design with a boiler for hot water heat in this unit really is just as tight. So I mean, I would hate to say it's impossible,
Sure.
but I think the only possibility I could see to make this work would be to have to replicate what was there before, which is outdated and not available as a packaged piece of equipment. We would have to look at custom measures to try to fabricate something.
Okay.
So, yeah, so that was, so this is the new mechanical room layout. So we have boilers, hot water boilers in this corner. This is the ductwork that Sally was describing, passing through that, what we're calling this areaway that's hidden by the knee wall outside. So the supply and return duct passing through that opening. And then we have zone dampers that provide zone control for the space that improves efficiency and adds comfort. So, and then I did want to show, try to find where the plan is here that shows an exterior. Just bear with, okay, here, this is a view. So this is a section view outside the building. So if we're cutting a section right through this areaway, so this is the unit sitting at grade level, the unit or the ductwork. So this is the supply and return ductwork that comes out of the unit and it drops down into the areaway. So this is we've got a grating cover that would go over everything. And then this would all be behind. So this is the end wall, I guess, of that areaway. So this would be continuous across the front as a brick, what I'm calling a knee wall. So that.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So when I'm standing in front of the knee wall and looking over it down, what do I see?
Yeah, so if you would be able to stand on this grating, you would see the ductwork looking down. The grating would be similar to what you would see in a city where there might be a
subway.
Yeah, exactly, a subway,
Okay.
right? So it's
Right.
it's a structural grating that you can see down through.
At ground level. I mean,
Well, the grating is up at it's just below the top of the top cap of that knee wall. So if we're saying grade is, we're at
Okay.
-1'3".
okay.
Yeah, and the top of the wall is 1'8". So it's roughly 3 foot high knee wall that would be, the height from grade here is about 3 feet.
So Casey, just to be clear here, these two horizontal ducts that are showing, one of them is below ground level and one of them is resting on top of it at ground level.
Okay.
This was the hole that's already dug down. This was the current, where you take in fresh air, right?
Well, where the two X's are,
Yep.
where the cursor is right now, those two X's, that's the existing penetration into the basement.
Okay. Yep.
So these two horizontal bars are coming across, turning to go further below ground. One is already below, one of those ducts is already below ground. The other one is resting on top of it. I believe I'm correct. I'm just the layperson. And then they're going to turn and go into the building at basement level where those two X's are.
Yeah, so I put the red box around what is now the existing areaway that, it's just coming straight up So this is existing now that, with that similar type grading sitting on it.
So just to follow up on that, right now, there are 3 openings at the front of the church that have grading across the top of them. Actually 4. There are 4 places. At the very top of the page, there's one. And then there's one right in the center, which would be directly below where you think of the statue on the wall being.
Mhm.
The third one is the one that we're going to use to get into the basement. And the 4th one is down there, right where he is now. And we had considered using that one to go directly into the building, which would have saved us some outside space, but it is an emergency exit. And we cannot take away an emergency exit from occupied basement space because the room adjacent to it is the choir practice room, and we're required to have a second exit. So what looked like an easy fix going through that very closest area way is not possible because we need to maintain it as an outside exit. And so as you look in the new drawing, the proposed drawing, that area is, that hatch area is shaded a little bit darker right there. That will remain being the emergency exit.
Is it not possible to just have a hinged duct access door as the emergency exit? Basically,
Steve, you would have to answer that, but I would think you would not be permitted to have people exit through a duct. You can't have people exit through a kitchen. That's not allowed.
you can have fairly significant size doors as part of ducts that one would suspect you could work your way through.
The problem with that, Dave, would be how do you hinge a ductwork, make it sealed, make it energy efficient, and then be able to lift the thing out of the way to get out. You don't want somebody to have to lift a ductwork or disassemble or separate ductwork in order to get out of the building.
Just search for hinged access duct door on Google and you get a ton of options that don't look like that would be a challenge at all.
Yeah, I guess the issue, Dave, would be that, so if you look at this view, this is the supply duct with the X and this is the return duct.
Mhm.
So we could, and actually we were going to put an access, we do have an access hatch on the ductwork so that you can physically get into the duct, because we were thinking that there could be an issue having to, clean out this areaway if leaves got down there, whatever. I think the issue becomes you could get into the duct. I guess we would need to modify this areaway even further because then you'd have to egress. You'd have to have egress on the other side of that duct. And then you'd need a ladder to be able to come up and out.
But is that not preventing the necessity to have the wall and the above ground ductwork from point A to point B?
No, that the emergency exit is the other side because there's a room off of it.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, it's the other way. Yeah.
So yeah, the one that's the hinged access hatch. I'm just saying if you were to go in there instead of all the way across, is it not possible to put some sort of access door through the ductwork there, given the size of the ductwork?
Well, you'd have to have an access door to get into the ductwork, and then you'd have to be able to find your way to the exit hatch to get out of the ductwork.
Yeah, and I think that there were, back when, I guess it's a while ago that we started looking at this project, but are you getting at, Dave, the fact that if we could use this location for the ductwork to minimize the amount of knee wall, I guess we would still need, keeps coming up on the- all right, so we would still need at least this much areaway. But I believe, and like I said, it was a while ago, but I'm pretty sure that structurally, the size of the ductwork that we're having to pass through the wall, that there were issues that it would have been difficult to get that size ductwork even in through this wall structurally. So.
Okay. Okay, so then by going all the way across, as you've indicated here, the existing ductwork is not large enough for the amount of air that you're moving around. And if you were to go into that, in that spot, you wouldn't be able to create comfortably another egress or exit point. So that's why you're going all the way across. But do you feel that that's been adequately explored?
I'm pretty confident the answer is yes, but I could follow up with our structural again on that if you want.
Casey, what's the size of the opening that we're going through we're proposing to go through? Because the opening in the other location is just the width of a standard door.
Right, yeah, so trying to think the best place here. If well,
while you're thinking on that, never mind, just continue your thought. Another follow-up, different subject.
Yeah, so this opening is roughly 6. You might not be able to see that very well, but yeah, so it's roughly the opening we're using is almost 5 feet wide and roughly 6 feet tall. So, and really cost-wise, it does work out because that opening is already there. We're not having to modify things because that was the outside air intake. And as far as this opening, if Sally's saying it's just a man door width right now, that's closer to 36 or 3 feet wide, but
because you can have sealed ductwork with doors, right? And should an emergency be necessary, you just have 2 requirements to open sealed ductwork. I mean, maybe not being a fire marshal, I don't know if that would, float. But the idea here is there's possibly solutions to having that ductwork not require the area variance and exceed the existing footprint as much. One other question though, so pausing on that, moving on to another subject. One of these ducts are essentially parallel, not perpendicular in their posturing to the ground level, right? So they're one on top of each other, probably 3-4 feet wide, 1.5 feet high, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, they're almost when they're in the areaway, they're 5.5 feet. That's the 66 is the width, 24 is the height.
Okay, so 2 by 5 plus. Your height here over on the left of your intake is 5 by 9. So what if instead of going up and then over, you went out and followed an underground path perpendicular the entire time to ground level, essentially burying both of them. And then once you get over to the unit, bring them up and over each other to connect them.
Well, that is what we're doing. I guess, let me show you.
They're on top of each other though right now. What if you were to take them and turn them 90 degrees vertically? So instead of coming up and over, they go out and across, right? So the 2 feet height that you see here, instead of being parallel with ground level, what if it's perpendicular to ground level? No, instead of being perpendicular, it'd be parallel. So turn them on their end and then bury them both.
You'd have to bury them 5 feet then.
You have to bury them 5 feet. Why is that? Because one's already buried.
Inches wide.
They're 5 foot wide, Dave.
Yeah, right. I know, but look at the entrance or the where the intake is now. It's already 6 feet high and buried below ground level.
True, I'm just pointing out that you would have to bury, instead of burying 2 feet, you would now have to bury 5 feet worth of ductwork.
Yeah.
I see. So you're just you're getting in a way to try to make the area way smaller is what.
Not trying to look at instead of having a retaining wall protecting the upper one that's going across, right? Right now, you're essentially going out and then flattening it out across that entire space. What if you turn the corner coming straight out of the basement, turned it immediately, right angle to the left, but kept those ducts vertical rather than horizontal? Kept them at the same height as the intake space that you have available and brought them all the way to the unit, and then brought them out from under the ground. Would you not eliminate the necessity to have anything above ground at all?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you would, but it would be awful deep.
What's the hindrance there? I know it's deep, but
Um,
you eliminate the need for the significant retaining wall. There's no concern from an engineering perspective in doing that, is there?
well, I think that there is. I mean, we do have utilities. All right, bear with me.
Mhm.
All right, so these are existing utilities as far as storm drain, which we are having to modify some of this anyways, but yeah, so there is this existing storm line, a 5-inch storm that is running in that vicinity. I think and then natural gas. I mean, I guess we could run that out and around.
Potentially. I mean, you're talking about if they were turned vertical, at most it would be a 4 foot wide, right? 224. Right now they're 224 height on top of each other, but if you turned them perpendicular, they'd be 48 wide with a little extra space. So call it, 50. You're already digging a ditch, moving a pipe out 2 feet probably isn't a lot.
Well, I mean, it's the issue becomes the storm drainage is draining by gravity, and it so here's the line. I guess this is the point we're connecting existing.
Mhm.
We also have a 4-inch sanitary line that's also draining by gravity in that same vicinity. So I think, I mean, I think that those would be reasons why that would be difficult, because we can only, in the street, it's only so deep. So
you're going above, or you're only going down 2 feet to avoid some of these other gravity-led complexities and not needing to reorient them.
yeah, I mean, I would probably need to go back. I mean, some of these, obviously, it makes much more sense cost-wise also to do it the way we're doing. So I guess I can't tell you for certain that there is no way to do what you're asking.
Mhm.
But certainly cost wise,
Mhm.
you know, so it may be not that it's without putting in a sewage pump, you know, it may not be possible to do what you're asking. But I think, you know, we may have not even thought about that because, you know, we were thinking that, you know, the cost savings outweighed that. So,
Right. Tell me for a minute, so changing subjects, but staying on these ducts. Tell me how much of the noise of the movement of air is attributed to a duct being above grade versus the unit itself below it, which I suspect is the majority of the sound. But would there be any sound savings if the ductwork is buried differently?
no, yeah, I mean, this being a church, we are already using velocities in the duct that are relatively low. I mean, that's part of why the duct is as big as it is.
Mhm.
So yeah, and the fact, if you were to bury it perpendicular, as you were saying, or 90 degrees to what you're suggesting, it wouldn't be any different than what it is now, or, you know.
So this is more of a area variance issue, you know, in terms of footprint than it is anything related to sound. If you could for a moment go to where you see the aerial view of where the unit's placed, and you had the nice side by side. Yeah, okay, great. On the right side where the outside air hood is, I notice it's towards the road, and I'm not quite sure what those 4 circles that look like a stovetop burner on the right side are, but to where is the noise coming from the most in this unit? And is it possible that it gets pushed farther to the right on what we're seeing here visually and still accomplish what we're looking? Essentially, if noise is something that we talk about later, which probably will be, to what degree can we push that a little farther from the road, and how does that affect the duct conversation we're having right now?
Yeah, we're really not able to push it further to the right because of where the return duct connects to well, actually the green is the return, the pink or purple is the supply duct. So we're trying to minimize, you know, the amount of fittings or duct transitions that we would have coming off the unit. So, and you can't, without going to some type of custom unit, you can't change that, you know, from the factory. So, we're kind of locked as far as where the unit goes. From that perspective, it needs to be here.
You could, for example, towards the arborvitae's on the right, you couldn't slide that unit 5 feet to the right and still have it accomplish the same, keeping the same intakes and as they are. If you were to move it to the right, how does that, is it conveniently there because there's already a cement block for it to sit on? If you were to expand the cement block to the right and shift it to the right, could you just, you know, reorient the ductwork? Again, I'm trying to get some sound a little bit away from the street potentially.
Yeah, I mean, could we move it to the right in that? So I think that would result in, so the supply duct would come out of the unit and we would have to, I can just, well, we'll just use a line here, but so all right, if we shifted the unit, so say this was the new unit location.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say, and I'm just drawing single line here, you know, that would be the center of the supply duct. It would have to come out and it would have to transition over
Mm-hmm.
before it could drop down like this. Well, and now I'm thinking about it, I mean, the return duct would be in the way, you know, the return duct's trying to come out here.
Mhm.
So I have a feeling that even if we were to try to shift it over, this conflict between the ducts,
Mhm.
I don't know, you know, and this is where we had a stair set up so that you could gain access down below here if you had to get at a floor, you know, any of the drainage or anything down in the areaway. That's what that stair is for. I guess that could be moved or put somewhere else, but it just makes the,
Yeah.
it make,
Hey, Casey?
yeah,
Yeah, just a question along with Dave's line there, just out of curiosity. The main unit, the RTU,
yep.
does it have possibility on outs on both sides? A lot of furnaces allow you the option of a right or a left out, or a lot of units allow the right or left out. Is that unit reversible? So if you switched it 180 degrees, the 4 circles were on the left versus the right.
Right.
So you would take the OA intake and move it back to way to the right, reverse the whole unit so that the 4 circles are towards the street, so you barely have to go out front, and the OA intake would now be back on the right side.
Right. So, right, what you're saying is, right, if our circles were on this side and the outside air intake
Mhm.
was over here, I think what that we ended up, I think you end up being in the same situation because the return air will always be on the same end as where the outside air comes in. So if this would be the outside air intake,
Right.
your return duct will end up being here.
Well, no, you still shove it to the left more, but not as much as what Dave's after is trying to avoid as much towards the road. So you shove the whole RTU unit over another bit, you know what I mean? Not that far, not all the way, somewhere in there.
Oh. Well, if it was there, then, and if it's reversible as to which side the ducts can come off, then the ducts would still come off pretty much in the same place that they presently are.
Correct.
And
Right.
the air intake,
Go
And the
ahead.
intake would be on the farther side. Maybe you'd be pushed back 2 feet-ish.
Yeah.
And what's
but
ladder?
I want to get back to the question about where does the noise come from? Do the circles represent the condensers that run in the summer?
Right.
Like,
Those, correct. Those are the condenser fans. So really, most of the noise will be coming from those when they're running full out. I think though, now, I mean, this unit, those condenser fans are variable speed. So really in the evening, it should not be, it wouldn't be running at full capacity anyway. So the sound analysis that we had done, that was at full capacity, and it's even stated in there that, you know, typically sound data manufacturers will err on the conservative side slightly. So it's possible that those numbers are slightly above what it would really be. But I mean, does that make sense what I'm saying there? The fact that, yes, that this is the end that you would have more of the sound would be coming from, that you would notice when you're standing on the sidewalk or outside the unit.
Say that again. If I'm standing on the sidewalk, just having a conversation and there happens to be no traffic, am I hearing the unit from the sidewalk as though it's another conversation going on?
Yeah, I mean, I believe the sound data was I have that here. So it was 61 dB, and is what this is a modeled sound level. I think the existing was 58. This is the measured, yeah, 58. So these are the measured values from the existing condensing unit. It's 58 decibels.
That's where we are now. Today, baseline is 58, 65, and 66. So go to the model,
Correct.
running full capacity.
Yep. So the modeled. Yeah,
Right there,
so this
61,
is,
66.
yep.
So, okay.
Yep.
So it's a little bit 3 decibels higher, which is negligible probably to the human ear.
No, I disagree.
Oh, I'm sorry. So 3 decibels, not 30, right? This is 58 versus 61 decibels, right?
Yeah, no, it's 3, right, 3 decibels. And that is, and it states in this report that is noticeable to the human ear,
Thank you.
but it is, all right, so standing right here, or
Right.
yeah, in conclusions,
And my units were wrong when I said that. Thank you.
yeah, 3 dBA increase would be noticeable if standing close to the unit, but it would most likely not be objectionable. So this is where he talks about the safety margins on the unit, and the fact that, where is it? I mean, traffic noise, typical road noise, here down here, it says traffic on South Main Street was almost constant when our sound engineer was taking the readings. It said passing cars and trucks caused levels 70 to 80 dBA.
So 70, so cars passing by the way, do change the way you communicate with people when sitting on porches on Main Street or State Street or Monroe, right? Decibel levels matter. And if we're talking 3 decibels that are, or the change from 58 to 61 is noticeable, I guess my follow-up question is what does it take from an engineering perspective to mitigate that change in sound based on the designs that you have in front of you today?
Well, I mean, that's what, I mean, down at the end here, I mean, you could use barriers to try to mitigate it. This model did not take, I'm fairly certain, did not take into account the plantings around the unit. I mean, maybe there is some mitigation from that, but I think the bigger point here would be that the way the unit works is those fans, those 4 circles, those are the condenser fans. That's the same thing that you have in your residential condensing unit. They're on a speed drive, so they slow down when the load decreases. So this 40-ton unit is capable of maintaining space conditions in a relatively full church on a design day that's like 90 degrees outside, and sunny. So, and the solar load is significant in the church due to those windows. But so, I mean, I think that it is most likely that during the evenings, even if the unit is running, which it could be, that those fans would be running, not all 4 fans would most it's likely that maybe 1 or 2 fans would be running, and even those fans might be running at half speed. So comparing it to that maximum, see, the sound engineer was using the maximum sound data when he did this analysis. So it's very unlikely for that unit to be running at its maximum capacity in the evenings. And then I think part of what he was saying in this is, I mean, if it's during the day, the road noise is gonna override anything that you wouldn't notice the unit running at all because of the road noise.
Now, let me just come back to, we're talking on,
I want to hit a question real quick.
yeah, John, go ahead.
So we're talking about 63 dB, right? That's an average of various frequencies that the unit gives off. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that is correct. And
Okay,
it's 61, but yeah.
Okay, so when we look at that chart right there, there are sound frequencies that the unit is going to give off that are above 61 dB, right?
Correct.
So if I look in the 1000 octave, 2000 octave, and 4000 octave, you see sound being emitted at an audible frequency in the 92, 88, and 84 dB range, right?
That's now.
Well, yeah, that's not, and I mean, I'm not an acoustician, so I don't want to get too far out of my realm, but I think these, the higher frequencies, I don't know that they are as audible. The lower frequencies are those are the ones that, when you hear the really loud car stereo thumping, that bass, that's what you hear. So
Sure. I'm positive that 1000 and 2000 octaves are audible. I'm positive. But even so, 63 is pretty high, right?
Yeah.
well, it's 61 is what the when you average all these together, the overall A-weighted sound pressure level
Yep.
is 61. So, I mean, right now it's 58. So I don't think you can, I don't think it's fair to look at this and say at 1000, at the 1000 hertz frequency band that 90, because it says 95 dBA, that you're gonna, if your hearing is in tune to that frequency, that you would hear it at that level. It's
Yep.
And if staying on this chart, so that's as measured right at the unit. The top horizontal is the current unit, and below it is the new unit.
correct. Yep.
And a 3 decibel difference, 3 decibels is quieter than breathing. That's my understanding. So when we look at 58 versus 61, that difference, call it 5%, is staying within essentially the same band of volume that we had currently. That's how you understand it. This unit is no louder from what you marginally than what is there now. Is that how you would understand it?
Yes. Yep.
And just looking at the unit, how it's placed on the site, the air intake or the outside air hood is not where the sound is emanating, generally speaking.
Correct. I mean, right. It's those condenser fans that would be the louder portion of when the unit's running in cooling mode. So.
Okay, and the difference between 58 dBA and 61 dBA at the sidewalk, that 3 decibel difference, not 30 decibel difference, but 3 decibel difference is incredibly small as far as a audible, noticeable difference versus what's there now, based on your understanding of how we should be interpreting this data.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask a question here for clarification too? So Casey, the current equipment, when the condensers are running, they're all running, it's running wide open. There's no variable speed like what you were talking about. The new unit will have a variable speed. So as I understand it, if that's right now, if during the week when the church has maybe 40 people come to mass at one point during the day, that condenser is running and making as much noise as it would be on a weekend with the capacity full. And what the published data for Train is giving us numbers for the wide open, full capacity church that you were describing on a 90-degree day.
I believe the existing condensing unit, those fans they won't vary their speed, but I think that they are staging on and off. So I don't think all 8 run. I believe there's 8 fans on that, and I don't think they all run at the same time. And if there's a call for cooling, I think they'll stage on.
Hey, Casey,
Yep.
curiosity, if you were able to reverse the unit like we talked, where would those fans be in proximity to where the current fans are?
Yeah, I mean, they would end up being closer to the street.
Where are the ones on the current unit?
Oh, compared to the current unit?
That overhead colored shot you were just showing us, it looked like the fans were on the end closer. It's pretty much the whole unit, isn't it?
Yeah, and it looks like they're closer to the street than the new design with the fans in the back.
Yeah. Can you blow that one up?
Yeah, I mean, the acoustics engineer that did this, I mean, this was over a year ago. So I don't think he even knew that the fans would be on the other side at that time. So yeah, so I think he probably just plunked it down, and yeah.
I see. They might even be farther to the right than what he shows there now.
Right.
Yep.
Sally, this is a question, for you, with regards to the necessity to build the wall and have the above ground ductwork as it is, recognizing that there's likely a savings cost and some limitations as to what could be done if they were to be underground. If there is any flexibility for them to be underground, though it may come with additional cost, do you think that you would have an interest in that? Is there some relative value to not building the retaining wall and having it above ground and maintaining the sort of visual structure with the street and pedestrians and members as it is, and the congregation as it is now? Sorry, I was asking Sally.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
if it's a feasible option, then yeah, it helps us avoid a lot of reviews, doesn't it?
Absent of that,
I think, and it preserves the existing facade as being totally symmetrical without any having to tweak it to make it look as similar as possible. But
in the window, when they look out, people inside, as they walk down the hall past those windows, they would see the top of the ductwork and the wall.
Those windows are stained glass windows, so you really can't. You can see headlights go by when it's dark, for instance.
Sure.
And you can see the fire trucks go by, but you really don't have they're not clear windows.
Okay, so this might be more instead for symmetry of design, and there might be some benefit to that. Is there a willingness to at least ask the question of the engineers, what would the cost difference, and again, we're not here to impose, relative cost variance, but if it can be done without a variance in a way that you may prefer at a cost that is reasonable, is that something that you feel like you've adequately explored?
I think we could look at it further and review what we had determined, or what we had explored earlier, as Casey was saying, concerning did we only go that deep because there's a sewer line, a sanitary sewer that would have to be moved because you do have to have a connection at a certain level for that.
Yeah.
And is there a way to do something with the storm drain, the storm discharge as well?
And I'm thinking of this.
And the other issue is then can we keep it from filling with water?
Sure.
Because there is a long history of water penetration into the front of that building. So that would have to certainly be, it would have to be able to not have water accumulate in it.
And that's true now, correct, Casey? That's already true?
Well, yeah, there is a water problem in that basement mechanical room of the
But there's a
church.
big difference between going 2 feet into the ground versus 5 or more feet.
Does
Right.
does
But
5
that certainly,
does 5 feet allow you to address some of that concern by building a better spot for the water to settle into rather than, is it helpful or doesn't matter?
No, I think it would almost certainly be worse. I would be concerned about the ductwork. The likelihood of that filling, even if it's 3 feet deep with water in the springtime, we've got ductwork sitting in water, then I think that's deep enough that solutions to try to mitigate that would be pumping, which, that's not a perfect solution either. So I think that would be a pretty big negative if we had to look at going that deep.
But somebody could give just a quick opinion on that to reaffirm that the ability to do that is not really an option at all you want to consider. Or if it could be considered, what's that additional cost? And then, we've kind of got to make a decision that, at least knowing that we've explored another option.
Yeah, Dave, if I may jump in there. Hi, Sally and Casey. I'm Mindy Zoglin. I'm not a board member. I'm the board's attorney. And
Oh.
one of the factors that the board is required to consider in connection with your application for the area variance is whether the church can achieve the benefits from this proposal by some other method that is feasible for it to pursue. And so without this information about how much more it would cost to mitigate some of the concerns that are being raised by the board members here, I'm not sure they're going to be able to make a finding in the church's favor with respect to that criteria. The other thing that, I've been listening in on the comments that the board members have made. And one of the other things that concerns me is that the board will need to make a finding about whether the proposed variance is going to have an adverse impact on the conditions in the neighborhood, particularly with respect to noise. And it sounds like Casey has a lot of knowledge and experience with respect to the mechanical engineering issues, but maybe not so much as in the acoustical engineering issues. And if the acoustical issues are things and the noise issues are things the board is concerned about, it may make sense for the acoustical engineer to come and answer some of the questions that have been raised tonight.
Can I make a comment in regards to the area variance? And I'm not sure that everybody got the information, but I think they did, that this site has less average coverage than all the churches in the village. I did it.
Okay, sorry, Steve, just to interrupt. Is this your opinion or?
No, I did a complete study of every property in the village with churches on them, and the average is 73.2% coverage on the church, on every church property in the village. This property is well below that now. So what I'm saying is, you're only talking, I think, 0.3% or 0.6% increase on the area variance, but it is still well below the average of every other church within the village.
And that may be true. And that is one of the 5 factors this board has to consider, but it's not the only factor.
No, I know that, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew or understood that I did the study to check what the average coverage is for the residential properties with churches on them.
Yeah, is that something that was in our packet, your study?
Yeah.
Pardon?
I think
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, they
Mindy, I
were-
think it was in the packet, but it was as part of the application. It wasn't identified that information was from the building.
Oh,
inspector.
okay. All right, thank you.
Yep, page 4. And Steve, that was very helpful, by the way.
And then on the,
I mean, I guess oh, sorry,
Go for
was
it,
someone
Casey.
else?
no, go for it.
Oh, well, I mean, I think I understand what you're saying, Mindy. I guess I would just say that, you know, you could ask us, you know, could we put the rooftop unit on the roof of the church? Or there's almost limitless options and things that we could end up looking at. And I mean, and I'm not making light of, or, you know, I think it was a reasonable request that you had. I'm the opposite viewpoint to that is, you know, there's a lot of things that we could study. I think if we look at what David was saying about turning the duct aspect ratio and going deeper into the ground, that wouldn't be very difficult to probably provide answers to that. So, but I guess,
It would be nice to know if it's feasible, right? It'd be nice to know if it can be done. And in that, there may be some interest from the applicant as well in understanding what that, how to, I suppose, insulate the current facade and the symmetry of that facade and what that difference might be in order to do it that way. And I don't know, Sally, about you. I'm not an engineer. So I don't know if by putting it farther underground, one can address the concerns about water. But I certainly think that, Sally, you'll want to know if by doing that, it can be mitigated, right? And if it can't be, then it's not feasible, and that's good for us to know. But if it is feasible and there's some benefit, I think that'd be nice to know. And I do agree as well, Mindy, thank you for bringing it up, that while it looks to be as though the sound difference is negligible, having perhaps somebody have that professional opinion, even if it's just brief comment before us, would be great.
I think Casey got it. So my point was, when you look at the chart, right, you see high peaks, right? 1,000 octave, 2,000 octave, right? Those are certainly audible frequency ranges. I'm 100% positive on that.
They are.
I think the point Casey made was that when you do the weighted average, which is, if I understand this correctly, it's actually what the human perceives as audible sound. It's only a 3 dB increase, which is audible. I would say it's significant.
correct. And it's stated in the report that if you're standing next to the unit, you can tell a difference, or most people can tell a difference.
Sure.
But you know, it's not significant, is what.
Yeah, the thing I wanted people to hear was that the individual frequency bands that you see there, those are, when you see those numbers, those are pretty high. But again, you don't perceive hearing an individual frequency band, an individual octave.
Mhm.
If I'm correctly stating that. It's that the perception is the average, right?
Correct.
Okay.
John, to your comment, so the current unit from the sidewalk is 3 dBA higher. Do you and I agree that 3 dBA higher is quieter than a whisper?
No. I think it's louder than a whisper, but certainly not yelling. I think it's conversational.
I thought that was 50 dBA, but this is where the sound engineer would be helpful to have here.
So,
I think the incremental change is different from the absolute decibel perception.
Yes,
Yeah, 10 decibels is double the volume.
Right.
yes. It's logged.
And 3 decibels is double the power, which is, that's different. But our ears aren't linear. So I've just been listening for a while and seeing what people had to say. I mean, I'll just kind of state my stance a little bit on this, listening to the discussion of the volume, and people are allowed to make noise on their property. We don't expect a property to be silent. We don't want it to be abrasive and a nuisance. And my understanding is typically, if you can hear sound that's much above typical conversation level at the property line, that's kind of about where it starts becoming a concern. And I know different places have different ways of regulating things, but there's kind of my thinking here that if you're somewhere in the 65 to 70 decibel range at the property line, I think that a lot of places may consider that to be satisfactory use of your property. So if you're living next to a bar or something like that, a lot of places have regulations on how loud they can be and so on. And I was just kind of thinking somewhere in that range. So I'm just telling you what I was just kind of thinking as just my gut feel is when I was looking at this and they said, well, it's going to be down in the lower 60s for volume at full bore. I mean, my initial take on that is that sounded to me like reasonably fair use of their property. The question is, what John brought up is it some kind of shrill and unpleasant sound just due to the nature of it? We don't have a clue what this is going to sound like. So I totally agree that where that fits and what it actually sounds like could be of concern. But I just wanted to state that my initial thought about this, given it's going to be quieter than the street noise and the volumes at property lines, my initial thought of it, I thought it looked reasonable, but that's my stance. So I just want to put that out there.
If you do research, a whisper is considered 30 decibels. A average conversation is 60 decibels. You look it right up. Somebody do a study, but a whisper is considered 30 decibels. Average human conversation or speech is 60 decibels.
Sure.
3 decibels is, I mean, tiny.
Well, you're talking absolute volume on a logarithmic scale versus a differential comparison, which I don't think is a valid way of looking at it. I see John nodding. But anyway.
From one engineer to another, I agree. It's not the same.
But I think to add just into what you were saying, that the type of sound would be very similar to the sound that is already there. It's the same, it's this very similar type of equipment. It's the same type, condenser fans running. So it would be, it wouldn't be as if it was going to be shrill or something much different than what is already existing.
Yeah, so let's maybe take a step back here a little bit. We've had a lot of questions for the applicants, and what I'm thinking is maybe it makes sense at this time to go ahead and open up the public hearing and open this up to public comments and seeing if there's any other neighbors that are nearby that want to weigh in on this, and see if there's any other comments that are out there, and then we can continue our discussions. Does anyone on the board have any other critical initial questions now, or shall we go ahead and open the public hearing?
I'm good with the public hearing.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion then to open the public hearing.
Second.
And how do you vote?
Aye.
Yes.
I guess we should say which public hearing we're opening, since we have two applications technically. Mindy, are we officially opening both? Does that make sense?
I think that's a yes, but she's muted.
That was a yes. I couldn't unmute fast enough. You can open
Okay.
it both at the same time.
Just to be clear, because there's two separate applications, one for a variance and one for a site plan. Right now, we're in listening mode and asking a few questions. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and the motion then is to open both public hearings for both applications. And let's go ahead and vote on that.
Okay, would you like a roll call vote?
Sure.
Okay. Member Katura,
Yep.
Member Loda,
Yes,
Member Marshall,
Yes.
Member Shannon,
I,
Chairperson Bleastra.
Hi.
Motion passes. If you wish to comment, please raise your hand or post your question in the Q&A, please. I'm not seeing anybody wishing to comment.
Okay. And did you receive any comments via email or written correspondence or phone calls?
No, I did not. We did have some calls regarding the letters sent out, just verifying what the church was doing, and that was about it. Nothing of concern. I just checked my email and there was nothing in there.
Okay. All right. Well, before, so normally I guess we would close the public hearing if we don't have any comments, but that usually starts the clock ticking. I was unsure what there's some people thought they might want some more information from the applicant. So if the board goes that direction, I think it would make sense to leave the public hearing open so anyone can comment on it as new information comes in. So that my thought for now is until we decide we're ready to vote, let's leave the public hearing open. So we had no comments. Let's circle back on a couple different topics. We talked quite a bit about the acoustics, and we can get back to that if we want. The other things with this were landscaping, and there's a little bit of talk of drainage. I had just a couple questions, and some other people touched on this earlier. So in this current proposal, you're having a horizontal, the air ducts going across. One's below ground, one's above ground. I guess there's a grate on top of them. Now, these ducts are presumably some type of sheet metal. What is underneath the ducts? Is that just gravel underneath all of them?
I believe we have a concrete base underneath. Yeah, so let me flip to the structural. Yeah, it's a concrete base that's sloped towards this existing egress. So that's how we were going to handle collection of water into that area, that there's an existing drain in the base of that egress areaway that would handle the rainwater, stormwater drainage.
Okay, so I guess one question we had earlier was, does this need to be completely impervious? Could it just let water pass through? And I don't, given you're going to have solid ducts though, I think we would still be, it still seems reasonable to consider this an actual part of a structure and a impervious surface, which is what the variance is for.
So just, were you asking me a question there?
Sure.
Just, or
Yeah, please, if you, so the question was basically is, does it have to be solid concrete underneath, or does it even make, I wasn't even sure if it makes a difference.
Yeah, I guess I'm not totally sure if,
So Justin, are you saying if the ductwork were somehow, let's just be imaginary here, if it was raised on little legs over a gravel base, that would be then be considered impervious. It would then be considered a pervious surface where rainwater would go through the grate, maybe run off the duct and go down into gravel.
That was just kind of my line of thinking, but I'm not sure. I mean, we're still talking a big hunk of metal there, so, which is the duct, and it's still a structure. So I'm not sure if that makes a difference or not. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but I know a question from another board member also earlier was, could this be made pervious? And in general, things work better if you don't pump the water around, if you just let it go into the ground. Obviously, you don't want it going into your building, but letting the water go into the ground is typically a good thing rather than pumping it into a storm sewer. I'm not sure how your stormwater system works. Obviously, you have way too much paved to just dispose of it on your property, and I'm sure the parking lot and other stuff goes into the storm sewer.
Yes, it does. And it drains, the entire property drains to Rand Place. Nothing drains into Main Street.
Yeah, Justin, and I'm just thinking about this. I mean, I think you could, so this is a section view cut. So if you see, well, I don't know exactly where that's cut, but let's just say it's roughly here, looking in this direction. So if I zoom in on that, so if you cut a section through there and you're looking this way, this is what that structural view is showing. So it is, there's concrete base right now. So if that were to be changed, I would think it could be probably, I don't know if it would, what it would do to the footings for this wall, but I think you could fill this with crushed stone. I guess I would just kind of thinking out loud, if you had a groundwater issue in the spring, now you've got muddy water bubbling up, and I mean, we could still, right now, the way I explained, we have a scupper drain, so it's going to allow, we've got a passageway, if you will, through the wall that will allow water to pass into the existing areaway where there's a floor drain. So I'm just trying to think, I don't know if there's a benefit, if you've got really nasty, dirty water that would be passing into that drain, if that would be an issue. But I mean, if the true intent of the surface has to do with stormwater and the ability for the stormwater to drain down through the earth, if that's where the requirement comes from, that I would think that the fact that there's ductwork up above this, like right now we've got ductwork here, and I'm not drawing it exactly right, but the ductwork is running like that. That I would argue that would count as pervious, and it shouldn't count against the church as far as being impervious if we were to change it to crushed stone. Just the fact that you've got duct here, the stormwater will flow around it and make its way to the crushed stone base.
This could be designed like an egress window well, which allows the water to pass through. When you do an egress window well into a basement, you use crushed stone and you allow the water to go down through. So this causeway, or whatever you want to call it, could be designed like a basement window well and allow it to drain naturally. And then you would have to have something just in case there was more volume than you expected.
Right. I would agree with that. So I would have to check into if there's any structural concern. I'm just, I don't know if this might get bigger as far as the footing that holds this retaining wall. But
Okay, well, anyway, that was a question I had. And so I think we've talked, do we have any more questions? I don't know if we have any more questions about the ducks in general, but I was kind of hoping to go towards the landscaping end of this. We've talked quite a bit about the noise. We've talked quite a bit about routing the ducts and where to locate this. So I was curious if any other board members had thoughts on the landscaping. Sally, I think you were the primary one who is leading up the landscaping. Is that correct? Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about what your plans are and your intentions with that?
So there is an existing approved landscaping plan from the 2001 renovation of the church. And that's what you see today is that landscaping plan. It seems to have worked pretty well. The arborvitae hide the current condensing unit, and you know, go with something that's proven. We would replace the arborvitae in kind. The rest of it was those are burning bushes on each side, and a bird's nest spruce, I believe it's called. I think that if we go with the retaining wall and wanting to hide it, we're going to have to remove all of this landscaping on the south side to do the work. It would be the time to also remove the landscaping on the north side so that when the new plantings are put in, they're of equal growth in height and maturity. And I would go with what we've got. So replacement in kind in a sense, the burning bushes, the spirea, the bird's nest spruce, the arborvitae. And I believe all of those and the hydrangeas, all of those are within the approved types of vegetation, although we of course would review that.
Okay, and just a couple other questions. So you're putting in, so you're taking out, basically, if we're looking at this image here,
Right.
pretty much everything, all the shrubs that are on the right-hand side of that image are going to be removed, and then you're going to plant them, and you're thinking of it following a similar theme, a similar species of plants, and then the new ones are going to be small, but then they're going, and presumably screening is not going, I guess what I'm kind of wondering is what it's going to look like around the air handler and unit initially. Obviously in time they'll grow just like they have now, and arborvitaes grow pretty quickly. So give them 4 years or so and they go from little tiny things to pretty large things.
Right. So the arborvitaes that are there now are 20 years old. They're from 2001. And when we put them in initially, we staggered the plantings, so in kind of a zigzag fashion. And because what that does, even though you've spaced them a few feet apart so that they will be healthy and grow evenly, by this drawing shows them planted right straight in a row, so to speak. Their centers are all even in the drawing, but they're actually planted in an alternating fashion so that the only way that you can see between them is if you're standing and looking right between them. It helps to increase the screening before they are fully mature.
yeah,
One question I think that might have come up earlier was what is the height of the new equipment compared to the present equipment? And so that would certainly be a factor as far as how well they get screened and how quickly they get screened. So Casey, can you tell us that, how high the new equipment is?
yeah, it's roughly 6 feet. So this, And unfortunately, we didn't dimension, we should have dimensioned the unit itself, but this dimension here is 6 feet for the outside air intake plenum, and that's virtually the same height as the unit. I mean, it's maybe a smidge higher there. So it's, so 6 feet.
And the present one is maybe a slightly shorter than that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I would guess 4.5 feet, give or take.
And just a question here. Where does the wall end relative to the walls end relative to the units? You have a wall covering all the ductwork. And do you have a wall around the front of the unit as well? I thought I saw concrete in the image, but I don't see a wall necessarily in this drawing.
Yeah, the wall ends at the unit. If you can see that.
So you're covering the
Right.
ductwork and basically the purpose of the vegetation is to block, give a year-round visual element to block the sight of the air handler and the air conditioning unit. So you don't have a wall screening it is my question. So
Right.
those would just be out. So when the plants are small, these will be visible.
Correct.
And then then in several years, they're gonna grow, and the intention with the plantings is to completely hide them as it is now.
Right. This is the rendering showing the future. And I did have a rendering, the ugly rendering.
Oh,
Yeah, so is that, so I guess the object on the right there, I thought that was a concrete wall, but that's the side of the equipment.
There.
correct. Yes, that's the equipment itself.
Yep.
There's no structural barrier around the equipment. No wall,
Just as
no.
a thought, would you consider like maybe a fence or something around it? Just think about it, like, I'm thinking like a wooden fence.
We were talking earlier about would something solid like that help with the buffering of the sound. I'm not sure you would want a wall of some kind that high. I would have always assumed that plantings would have been preferred.
Well, I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, yeah,
If the plantings are screening it, I'm happy with that, personally. I think our code says mechanical equipment should be screened by a wall, fence, or plantings.
Right.
And so
Right.
I'm just asking the question again, and not necessarily making a decision here as to where it should go, but I'm just asking the question.
I think the idea about the brick half wall was that to the average person, especially as vegetation grows, it would just become kind of a seamless backdrop because the brick would match the brick, and unless you were really tuned into looking at it, it wouldn't pop out as being a different backdrop than the other parts of the brick church. But to have a brick wall or fencing around the unit itself would make it look even more obvious that there's something inside that brick wall or inside a fencing. Whereas right now people are like, I never knew there was anything in there. It just looks like a bunch of arborvitae. Never realized there's a piece of equipment behind there.
That's exactly it. That's very good. So basically, if you put something around it, it'd look like, oh, you got a dumpster in your front yard. and
Right,
a
yes.
Little fence around it
Right.
or
Yeah.
something like that.
But
Yeah.
I think I think in either case, either the unit or even if it's a brick wall that's 6 feet high, that looks just like the short wall. The idea would be to have vegetation around it where you don't see either. And
Mhm.
in my view, the only reason to have something that's structural would be from a noise perspective. And I don't think I can really make any judgment until at least I get a brief sound opinion. But if there's no negligible difference between what's there now and what's going in, then to me, the vegetation that's there now and what you propose looks quite nice. Perhaps something to break up the row of arborvitaes, like in the existing picture there that we see. There's that small planting, that tree in advance. But I mean, that's small.
Right, and there's the hydrangea on the one side of the
Yeah,
arborvitae, just to make it not look like a wall, just to give
yeah,
it
a
some-
row of arborvitaes looks like a row of arborvitaes, whereas
Yeah,
here you have a little
that's-
break in
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, you know, for me, I like, you know, the vegetation that you propose, and I think it does well to address the concerns as a passerby.
Any other comments from board members on the landscaping?
I just like to say that I think the wall gives it some depth and it brings the plantings out closer to the street. I like it better.
I guess the only other thing I was wondering is, hey, would it make sense to put a tree somewhere in the front yard? But we don't need to get into, I think the biggest concern is if the general theme is using landscaping for screening, they intend to add some diversity to it, as stated. I think that's the primary functional thing that we'd be concerned about. And other aspects could be left to the applicant to do what they like.
Justin, in my estimation, you know, I'm personally at a point where if somebody came back and just gave us some comments on the sound, and if somebody could comment on the discussion of burying the ductwork, you know, perhaps we just postpone to that February 6th meeting and keep it on the agenda, and hopefully somebody can come in and offer an opinion then, so we don't have to delay, you know, super long. It's only a couple weeks out. And, you know, just kind of revisit it then with those two items.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
And maybe also look into gravel as opposed to cement.
Sure.
And so if that's the preference of everyone, to get a little more information and then evaluate it. It sounded to me like, Dave, the alternate ductwork and the sound, basically you wanted to understand the current design and just inquire about whether other options could possibly make sense. If they don't, and there's a good reason for it, that's fine. But it sounded like the big thing you want to know is, hey, let's look at something. Is this plan that we're putting out there, is this what we want to do, and is it good? I think that's what I've heard you say.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay. I don't have a problem waiting a couple more weeks on this. I think it makes sense to do diligence to look at some things. If there are concerns out there. The only thing I was wondering about is with the landscaping plan, it sounds like the plan isn't going to, doesn't strictly represent what they intend to put in there. But I also hear that people, so like the plan on the right, for example, it doesn't show the hydrangea, it doesn't show the other things. It doesn't show the trees planted in the manner they intend to be. And also what I heard from other board members is that the general concept seemed reasonable. They've done a good job of putting things in there in the past. My question was, do we actually need more accurate drawings showing things, labeling the species and stuff like that? So go ahead, chime in if anyone has a thought on that.
Well, if there's an approved landscaping plan and the church is going to deviate from it, I think that it would be in the church's best interest if the board approved what the proposed landscaping is going to be.
Mhm.
So Mindy, you want to see the trees offset and then the hydrangeas on the right?
Right.
Okay. I think we're all in, I don't think anybody has an issue with Sally's proposed plan, but, okay.
And by the way, as a comment, I'm just going to say something. I know the applicant had some concerns about getting a professional landscape architect to do these kind of things, but I mean, we often sometimes take things with amendments hand drawn on them. I'll just throw that out there. If you want to take a drawing and mark it up with a marker and label the species, I might be fine with that. I don't know if any other people have an opinion. Doesn't necessarily need to be a costly thing is what I want to say.
Right.
I'm okay with that.
And then the only other thing that I would ask is that if the sound study could be posted to the website in advance of the next meeting, so that the public has a chance to see it.
Yes, I'll just need that sent to me.
Was the sign about the public hearing posted on the property?
Yes. If you're going to continue the public hearing, it would be February 2nd would be your next meeting.
And that would be 6:30 p.m. is what we're talking about, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Mhm.
So unless anyone else has more information for the applicant or more questions, and we can always ask them later, but I would like to just go ahead and make a motion to leave the public hearing open and continue discussion on February 2nd at 6:30 p.m.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote. Member Katura.
Thought I got a promotion.
You did.
Yes.
Member Loda.
Yes.
Member Marshall.
Yes.
Member Shannon.
Aye.
Chairperson Gleister.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Well, thank you for presenting everything, and everyone here has been listening. So we'll continue that in a couple weeks, and hopefully we can get to a reasonable conclusion at that next meeting. So I think that will wrap up this application. We wrapped up the discussion of our meeting schedule. And so I don't have any other business to raise tonight. Does anyone else have anything?
Not here.
Not here.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, everyone, for your input and your frank discussion, and we'll be back with more information for you.
All right, well, thank you. We ask a lot of questions, but we do aim to get to reasonable outcomes. So, but we do our jobs. We're known for being thorough, but thank you.
And
Thank you.
So we'll see you in a couple weeks then, and I will go ahead and make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Justin, just if you don't mind, we'd like to keep it open, the 75 Monroe board, for another 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. So you do have
Send a
another.
separate link for the attorney-client session.
I can't move you.
I'll just send around a WebEx invite for that.
that sounds
Okay.
Okay, so basically we're adjourning the meeting,
Okay.
and then you're having an attorney-client session, which is
Right.
irrelevant to the formal meeting. So I think we can go ahead and have a motion to close the meeting, and if people want to have an attorney-client session, then so be it.
That sounds good. Hey, I just want to say to Sally, I'm kitty corner across from you guys, and you guys are great neighbors. We would love having you right next to us. So,
Well,
anyway,
thank you. It's nice
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah.
We do our best.
we got lots of friends who stop by on Sunday after service just to say hi, and it's really
Oh,
wonderful.
yeah.
Anyway,
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so we have a second on adjourning the meeting.
second.
Okay, roll call. Member Katura,
Yes.
member Loda,
Yes,
member Marshall,
Yes.
member Shannon,
Aye.
chairperson Bleaster.
Aye.
Motion passes. Good night, all.
Good
I'm
night.
gonna,
Goodbye.
I'm gonna assume you don't need me for the attorney-client privilege.
that's great.
Now we're good.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good night, all.